Well, let's get the reaction now of the Vice President of the National Farmers Union, Rachel Hallos, who joins me now live. Very good evening to you. Thanks so much for talking to us. What do you make of this inheritance tax measure, and what are other farmers saying to you as well?
Well, I'm actually up in Scotland. I'm away from my own home farm at the moment, and I'm at a sale up in the west coast of Scotland, the CHANCELLOR Cattle Society sale, and every single farmer that I have seen, these are people that I've known for years, have come straight up to me and said, what on earth is going on? How are we supposed to be able to deal with this? How do we ensure that our business survives? How are we supposed to invest in our business and grow, which we thought this is what government wanted us to do? So I think, listening to the reports that you've already said, people are just baffled by how on earth this is part of the plan, to be quite honest. The new government came in, we've been seesawing with previous governments. We were told that we were going to get stability. We were told that the government needed growth. We needed to generate this income for the country. We're up for that. How does this work? So if that's how I feel, that's how farmers are feeling, and it's this frustration and actually this betrayal, which is a bit of a strong word, but that's how it feels.
The government, for their part, would say they are continuing to protect small family farms. They say that this measure will leave 3/4 of farms unaffected. And a lot of people watching might say it's fair to make sure that wealthy farmers are treated the same as everybody else.
The wealthy farmer line always really does get me, to be quite honest. The type of farms that this is protecting are not viable farms, in all honesty, or the vast majority of them will not be viable farms. So for a farm to be viable it has to be of a decent size. So the type of farms that the government has actually used to form these calculations, they're not viable business propositions, or the vast majority aren't. So you have to grow your business. You have to get bigger to be able to survive in this industry that seems to be being pulled in all directions. So I'm not entirely certain who the government's protecting here. When you talk about wealthy farmers, I'm not entirely certain what a wealthy farmer looks like. The farmers that I've been speaking to this evening, the farmers that I've been receiving phone calls from, these are working people, hardworking people that are growing their business to try and produce food, do the right thing, and create a sustainable business for the future. They may have assets, but they are very cash poor. I can promise you that. I am a farmer. I know.
The government's also keen to stop very rich people avoiding tax by buying up farms to gain some kind of tax protection or protection from inheritance tax. Do you think that is a reasonable step to prevent that? I mean, do you welcome that?
I would welcome anything that is sensible. This is not sensible. This needs this needs to stop. It needs looking at. It needs reassessment, and I think there are other ways of doing this. I think what you are actually doing with this policy is going to penalise those family farms that are trying to build their business to deliver the growth that we've been told that we need to deliver for this country, to do all the things that we've just been talking about. Your previous report about the NHS actually needs. We need to look at food security. We've been told food security is national security. The world is looking in a very different place at the moment, whether it's from war or whether it's from climate activity that's causing major flooding, like we've just seen in Spain, where we get most of our salads from. There have got to be better ways of doing this, and I'm not sure that the government fully understands the implications of the actions that they have taken in this budget.
So what do you think the implications are? What impact do you think this will have?
I know for a fact that there are people starting to make decisions about what happens next with their business. It really is as simple as that.
So meaning they might sell off part of their land, for example, to raise money for potential inheritance tax in the future? What kind of decisions do you think?
So the decisions that some of the decisions that would have to be made to actually fulfil this requirement would have to sell off some of that farm, which people say, well, that's absolutely fine. You've got a bit left, but that makes the business unviable then. That's the problem. And quite often, some of these farms already have charges on them because they've already had to pay somebody else out of the business because the business isn't viable, the food business isn't viable anymore to actually sustain that wider family. So those discussions have already had to have been had. So the whole concept of having to borrow even more money, and then obviously you don't necessarily borrow against an asset these days. There's the affordability question. If a business isn't viable with the land, once the land's been sold, how can you actually borrow the money because you can't pay the loan back? So this is really complicated stuff. And I think government really needs to sit down with the people that actually understand the implications of this. So we do not find ourselves in a situation, because as Keir Starmer said when he spoke at the NFU conference, replacing a family farm is really hard to do. And we may find ourselves where some of these family farms go, and then what? What do we do about food security then?
You talk about food security. What about food prices? Could it be that prices could go up because farmers need more income?
Well, ultimately, the reality is that food prices have actually been kept at a level due to money that has gone into the industry. That money hasn't stayed there. It's actually subsidised, for want of a better description, food prices. And if you look at the other things that have happened through the budget, whether it's national insurance contributions, other pressures on businesses, there's a big supply chain feeding into agriculture, and agriculture feeds into a huge supply chain itself. Somebody somewhere is going to have to pay the difference because it's not there in the supply chain. So, the question is where? So is it the consumer? Now, that does not help anybody, does it?
OK, well, Rachel Hallos, we must leave it there. But thanks very much indeed for joining us. Vice President of the NFU, thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.